Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are doing some heavy lifting.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't mean physical lifting. I mean the kind of heavy lifting that, leaves you staring at the ceiling at 3:0 a.m., wondering if you actually know what you're doing with your life.
That kind of heavy lifting.
We are talking about management, but not the shiny LinkedIn influencer version of management where everyone is like high-fiving and hitting KPIs. We are talking about the messy reality.
The reality where you feel less like a leader and more like a glorified referee.
Exactly. That feeling where you spend 90% of your week just unblocking people, smoothing over ruffled feathers, and trying to figure out why two fully grown adults can't agree on a font size.
Been there many times.
So we are tackling a concept called resilient management. And I want to be clear right up front. When I first saw this title in our source stack, I rolled my eyes. I really did.
You thought it was going to be about grit, didn't you? Or hustle culture.
I did. I thought it was going to be another one of those, hey, suck it up, buttercup, be resilient. But that is not what this is. This isn't about the manager having a thick skin.
Yeah.
It's about the team having a skeleton. It's about architecture.
That's the perfect way to frame it. The core thesis here, really, is that resilience isn't a personality trait of the boss. It's a structural property of the team.
A structural property. Unpack that a little.
Well, think of it like a bridge.
Yeah.
A resilient bridge isn't resilient because the bridge keeper is really tough. It's resilient because it has trusses and support beams and a solid foundation.
Okay.
So if your team collapses the moment you step out of the room, or if a single interpersonal conflict derails your entire roadmap for a month, you don't have a resilience problem. You have a structural engineering problem.
And that's what we're going to build today. We're going to look at the scaffolding. We have a lot of ground to cover, spanning from the deeply uncomfortable soft skills.
They're not soft at all. They're the hardest skills.
Right. Like telling someone they're annoying their coworkers, to the dry but necessary hard skills like documentation and decision matrices.
And we need both. That's the catch. You can't just be the empathetic listener who has no systems, because then you just burn out absorbing everyone's anxiety.
Right. You become the emotional sponge for the team.
Exactly. But you can't just be the process bureaucrat who has a spreadsheet for everything but can't look someone in the eye, because then your team hates you and they leave.
Or they work around you.
Or they work around you, which is even worse. You have to find the synthesis.
So let's start with the pain.
Mm-hmm.
I want to paint a picture that I think is going to resonate with a lot of people listening right now.
Okay.
You are a manager. Maybe you're new, maybe you've been doing it for years, but you feel completely underwater. You're constantly jumping from one fire to another. You are the fixer.
The benevolent fixer. It's
Yeah.
a very, very seductive archetype. You think you're helping.
Right. You think, I am removing obstacles for my team. This is my job. But the source material argues that being a fixer is actually a failure mode.
It is. I mean, think about it. If you are the fixer, you are the bottleneck. Every single problem, big or small, has to route through your brain to get solved. Nothing moves without you.
And the mission of this deep dive today is to give you the toolkit to stop being a fixer and start being a builder.
A builder. I like that. A builder creates a system where the team fixes the problems themselves.
That sounds like nirvana. It also sounds terrifyingly hands-off.
It's not hands-off, it's hands different. You're not holding the hammer anymore. You're teaching them how to hold it.
But getting there is messy. So let's start with the absolute messiest part, the feedback trap.
Oh, this is the big one.
We've all been there. You have a team member, let's call him Alex. Alex books a 1.1 with you,
Yeah.
walks in, closes the door, takes a deep breath and says, I can't work with Jay. He keeps interrupting me in meetings and it's driving me crazy.
The classic tattle moment, or the vent session.
Now be honest. As a manager, your instinct, your biological imperative is to say, okay, Alex, I hear you. I've got this. I will go talk to Jay.
Of course. You want to be the hero. You want to restore the peace. It feels efficient. You think, I'll just go tell Jay to tone it down and we can all get back to work. Problem solved.
But the source material screams, stop at this moment. It puts up a giant red flag.
Right.
Why? Why is fixing this a trap?
It's a trap because of the geometry of the conversation. You are creating a triangle where there should be a straight line.
A triangle.
You, Alex, and Jay. If you go to Jay and say, hey, I heard you're interrupting Alice, what is Jay's first question going to be?
He's going to ask when. What did I say? What meeting?
Exactly. And you weren't there. Or maybe you were, but you weren't paying attention to the specific nuance of their interaction, so you can't give him the data. You are passing along hearsay.
You're just a messenger.
A very unreliable messenger. So now, Jay isn't thinking about his interrupting habit. He's not reflecting on his behavior at all. He's thinking, why is Alex talking behind my back? And why does my manager believe him and not me?
So you've taken a small friction and annoyance, and you've turned it into a trust crisis.
Precisely. And what's even more important in the long run is you have robbed Alex of the opportunity to grow. If you fight all his battles for him, he learns that he is helpless. He learns that the way to solve problems is to complain to you.
So you're actually training your team to be less capable.
You're training them to be dependent on you, which feels good for your ego, but it's terrible for the team's resilience.
Okay, so the resilient approach, the builder approach, is to turn to Alex and say, you need to talk to Jay yourself. But let's be real, Alex is going to hate that.
Oh, absolutely.
He's going to say, I don't want to start drama. That's your job. I just want him to stop.
And that is the critical moment. That is where you switch from fixer to coach. You don't just push him into the pool and say, good luck. You teach him how to swim.
How? What does that sound like?
The source material gives us a specific tool for this. It's called the feedback equation.
I love a good framework. Break this down. How do we prep Alex for this conversation so it doesn't turn into a shouting match or just awkward silence?
It starts with the hardest part, the thing human beings are just terrible at. It starts with separating fact from judgment.
Okay.
We are wired to judge, we see a behavior, and we immediately slap a label on it.
Give me an example from our Alex and Jay scenario.
Alex says, Jay is rude. That is a judgment. Jay is aggressive. That is a judgment. Jay doesn't respect me. That's a huge judgment.
Right. And you can't argue with a judgment.
You can't. It's his feeling, but it's not actionable. So you, as the manager, have to challenge that. You have to ask, what did the camera see?
The camera test. I like that.
Yeah.
A camera doesn't see rude. A camera sees what?
A camera sees Jay speaking while Alex is still speaking. A camera records audio. Jay said, that idea won't work before Alex finished his sentence. That is a fact. It is objective. It is indisputable.
Okay, so step one is getting Alex to identify the specific observable behavior. Not Jay's a jerk, but Jay interrupted me 3 times in the Tuesday stand-up.
Right. But that's not enough. Because Jay can just say, so what? I was excited. I was building on your idea.
Or, I thought you were done.
Exactly. So the second part of the equation is the heavy hitter, the impact.
This is where I think a lot of feedback falls apart. People say, the impact is that it annoyed me, or it made me feel disrespected.
And then that is weak feedback. I'm not saying feelings aren't valid. They absolutely are. But in a professional setting, they are very easy for the other person to dismiss. Oh, Alex is just sensitive. He's overreacting.
So you have to connect it to something tangible.
You have to drill down. The manager needs to ask Alex, okay, it was annoying, but what was the consequence of that annoyance? So what?
Keep asking, so what?
Basically. You keep digging until you hit the business impact, the team impact. So Alex says, it was annoying, you say. And what happened because it was annoying? Well, I got flustered. And what happened because you got flustered? I lost my train of thought.
Okay, getting closer.
And what happened because you lost your train of thought? Well, we didn't get to discuss the API integration risks. So now the engineering team is building without knowing those risks.
Ooh, that's good. That lands completely differently.
It's a world of difference that shifts it from I don't like you to your behavior is endangering the project.
So that is the feedback equation.
Exactly. Observation, the fact, plus impact, the consequence, the message. When Alex goes to Jay with that, it's a totally different conversation. It's not an accusation. It's a problem-solving session.
It's collaborative.
Yeah.
Hey, Jay, when this specific thing happens, this bad result follows. How can we fix that together?
Now you're building a resilient team.
That seems incredibly effective. But it also seems like it requires the manager to spend a lot of time role-playing with Alex, right? You can't just explain the formula and send him on his way.
Oh, absolutely not. You have to be the sparring partner. You have to sit there and say, okay, pretend I'm Jay, say it to me. And when Alex opens with, you're always interrupting me, you stop him.
You pause the simulation.
You pause and say, nope, always is an exaggeration.
Yeah.
Jay will fight you on that word. He will find one time he didn't interrupt you, and now you're arguing about the word always instead of the behavior.
So you're coaching them to be a lawyer for their own case, to build an airtight argument.
In a way, yes, but a curious lawyer, not an accusatory one. That's the other part of the coaching. You want to encourage them to start with a question.
Instead of a statement.
Instead of a statement. Hey, Jay, I noticed you jumped in there when I was talking about the API. Was there something urgent on your mind? Maybe Jay isn't a jerk. Maybe Jay had a brilliant idea and couldn't contain it. Maybe Jay thought Alex was finished speaking.
You're giving him the benefit of the doubt. You're separating the intent from the impact.
Which is just a massively mature communication skill to have in work and in life.
Right. But I have to play devil's advocate here. Is there ever a time where this go work it out yourselves strategy is actually, I don't know, negligence, where the manager should step in?
Absolutely. The source is very, very clear on this. You do not send a sheep to negotiate with a wolf.
What's the red line? When do you stop coaching and start intervening?
The first and most important red line is safety. If there is vitriol, if there is yelling, if there is any kind of discrimination or harassment, you step in immediately and decisively. You do not coach someone to confront their abuser in the workplace. That is your job, 100%.
Okay, that makes total sense. What else?
There's also the pattern exception. If Jay has had this exact same feedback from 5 other people over the last year and hasn't changed, then Alex talking to him is just feeding another person to the problem. It won't help.
That's when it becomes a performance issue for Jay.
Exactly. That's when you, the manager, have to step in. Because the problem is no longer the interpersonal dynamic. The problem is Jay's inability or unwillingness to change a behavior that is damaging the team.
There was a really powerful anecdote in the source material about this, about a manager dealing with a yeller.
Yes, I love this story.
The manager hadn't seen the yelling herself,
Hmm.
but the team was terrified, and she had to figure out how to give feedback without falling into that hearsay trap we talked about. She couldn't say, "I heard you yelled at Sarah."
This was just brilliant management. She didn't confront the yeller on the specific words used because she wasn't there. She couldn't own that feedback. She confronted him on the atmosphere he created.
Which she did experience.
Exactly. She could own that. She brought him in and said, I don't know what happened in that room yesterday. I wasn't there, but I know that today in our team stand-up, the team is silent. I know that 3 people who usually have great ideas didn't speak up. I own the psychological safety of this team, and currently it is broken. That is the impact of whatever happened, and it stops now.
That is such a powerful move. It's unarguable. He can't say, "No, the team isn't quiet."
He can't, because she's stating her observation, I own the atmosphere. It completely bypasses the he said, she said drama and gets right to the heart of her responsibility as a manager.
Her domain.
It asserts the manager's true domain, the health of the system, not the referee of every individual squabble.
So that covers the refereeing aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But let's zoom out. We're talking about coaching Alex to give feedback, but coaching is just one mode of operating.
It's one tool in the toolbox.
Exactly. And the source material introduces this really useful framework of the 4 hats of management.
Yeah.
And I think this is where a lot of us get tripped up because we try to wear all the hats at once, or we just put on our favorite one every day.
Or we just wear the one that fits our head the best and ignore the others, even when the situation calls for a different hat.
Right. So let's walk through them. The 4 hats are mentoring, coaching, sponsoring, and delivering feedback. Let's start with the big 2 that people constantly confuse. Mentoring versus coaching. I'll be honest, for years I used to think these were synonyms.
Most people do. But in this framework, they are almost diametrically opposed in their approach.
How so? What's the core difference?
Mentoring is, I have the answer and I will give it to you. It's a transfer of data. It's a download of experience. Here is how I solved this exact bug back in 2019. Here is the template for the presentation you need to give. You are the expert.
Okay, that's giving advice. It's directive.
It's very directive. Now, coaching is the opposite. Coaching is, I believe you have the answer and I will help you find it.
So you're not the expert.
You are not the expert. You are the mirror. You're the guide. You ask open-ended questions. What have you tried so far? What are you afraid of? What does success look like here? If you had a magic wand, what would you do?
It's the Socratic method, basically.
Yes. And it is painfully, painfully hard for new managers to do, and for many experienced ones, too.
Right.
Because you got promoted, because you are good at solving problems. You are the best engineer, the best designer. So when you see a junior employee struggling with something you know how to do in 5 minutes, every fiber of your being wants to say, move over, let me type it.
Let me fix it. You want to be the hero again.
Exactly. But if you do that, you are mentoring, which is fine sometimes. But if you only mentor, your team never learns to think for themselves. They just learn to ask you. You become a human Stack Overflow for your team.
And a bottleneck. Again.
And a bottleneck. It always comes back to that.
So when do you wear which hat? How do you choose? It feels like a judgment call every time.
It is, but there are some good heuristics. It depends on the person and the task. If you have a brand new junior hire and they are stuck on a complex database issue, for the love of God, do not coach them.
Right.
Do not ask them, how does the database make you feel? Or what is the database trying to tell you?
They're drowning. You're asking them to philosophize while they're drowning.
They are drowning. Throw them a rope. That is mentoring. Here's the command you need to run. Here's the documentation. Let's walk through it together.
You give them the fish.
You give them the fish because they're starving. But if you have a senior engineer who is stuck on a big strategic decision, should we use AWS or Azure for this new service? That is when you coach.
Why? They might want your opinion.
They might, but they already know the technical facts. They know the pros and cons. They are not stuck on the information. They're stuck on the judgment, the trade-offs. You help them process their own thinking. What are our principles for this decision? What's the 5-year implication?
I see. So mentoring is for information gaps. Coaching is for wisdom gaps.
That's a beautiful way to put it, yes.
Okay, so that's hats 1 and 2. What's the third hat? Sponsoring.
Sponsoring is the hat you wear when the employee isn't even in the room. This is about advocacy.
This is the political capital hat.
It is. This is you in the leadership meeting saying, you know who is absolutely crushing it? Sarah. We should give her the lead on the big Q3 project. Or, I know we're looking for someone to speak at the conference, and Michael has been doing amazing work in that area.
So it's about creating visibility and opportunity for your people.
Yes. It's how you grow your high performers. You put their name in the room for things they might not even know about. You use your influence to pull them up.
And finally, the fourth hat is delivering feedback.
Which we've talked about. The source calls this the icing on the cake. But I kind of disagree. I think it's the plate the cake sits on. Without constant, clear feedback, both positive and negative, none of the other hats work properly.
Because you're coaching or sponsoring in a vacuum.
Right. That presentation was great because you did X, Y, and Z. That code review was a bit sloppy because you missed these edge cases. That's the data they need to grow.
So the danger, according to the source, is default behavior. We all have a default hat we're comfortable with.
I'm a default mentor. I love explaining things. I could talk for hours. I have to actively stop myself.
I think I'm a default coach. I love asking why.
Yeah.
Which probably, really annoys people when they just want to know where the bathroom is.
Exactly. And that's the friction point.
Mm-hmm.
If you mentor a senior person too much, they feel micromanaged. They think, I know how to do this, stop lecturing me.
And if you coach a junior person too much,
they feel abandoned. They feel like, why won't you just help me? You have the answer. Why are you making me guess? It erodes their trust in you.
So the trick is, what? Just guessing which hat to wear and hoping you get it right.
No, the trick is something much simpler and much more effective. It's explicit transparency.
What do you mean?
This is one of the simplest but most powerful tips in the whole source material. Just tell them which hat you are wearing.
Literally say the words like, I am now putting on my coaching hat.
Literally say it. It sounds a little goofy, but it works wonders. Hey, for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to put on my coaching hat. That means I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions to help you think this through. I'm not holding back the answer, I promise. I'm just helping you find your own.
That changes the energy in the room completely.
It does. It lowers their anxiety. They know you're not playing a guessing game with them.
And what about the other hats?
Same thing. Okay, I'm taking off my coaching hat and putting on my mentor hat for a second. My advice here is to do X, or let's switch to feedback mode. Can I give you an observation about that last meeting?
It sets the rules of engagement for the conversation.
It makes the invisible visible. It sounds so mechanical, but it's actually really kind. It removes the guessing game and builds trust.
Clarity is kindness.
That's a recurring theme here. Always.
Speaking of kindness,
Mm-hmm.
we have to go to the dark place. The section of the source material titled, When It Just Isn't Working.
Yeah. The hardest part of the job, by far.
Because sometimes you do everything right. You coach them, you mentor them, you sponsor them, you give them clean, actionable feedback using the equation, and the person is still failing. Or worse, their behavior is toxic.
This is where resilient management really gets tested. Because the fixer manager, the default manager, will just keep trying to fix the person. They'll have another conversation. They'll try a different approach. They will burn themselves out trying to save everyone.
And a builder manager.
The builder manager looks at the system, at the team, and says, this part does not fit, and its presence is damaging the other parts.
The source talks about 2 paths here, and only 2. Transfer or terminate. Let's talk about transfer first.
Transfer is an interesting and underutilized option. Sometimes a person is failing not because they're a bad employee, but because they're in the wrong context.
Wrong environment.
Exactly. Maybe they need a really directive, hands-on boss, and you are a hands-off coaching-style boss. Maybe they are a slow, deep, methodical thinker, and your team is a rapid response firefighting unit. They're a diesel engine in a race car's body.
So moving them to a different team isn't just passing the buck.
It can be passing the buck, and you have to be brutally honest with yourself about that. If you're just trying to hide a bad employee to avoid a hard conversation, that's management cowardice.
And the other manager will know.
Oh, they will know, and you'll lose all your credibility. But if you genuinely believe their skills would shine under a different manager or on a different project, it's a rescue mission. You are saving their career, and you're helping another team. It can be a huge win-win.
But then there is termination. And the source references Camille Fournier's book, The Manager's Path here, specifically regarding performance improvement plans, or PIPs.
Right.
There's such a heavy ethical weight to firing someone. It feels like you failed them. It feels like a personal failure.
It does. It feels terrible. But the source material and Fournier's work flips the frame. It asks you to stop looking at the impact on the one person who is failing and start looking at the impact on the rest of the team who is succeeding.
What do you mean?
If you keep a high-performing jerk or a really nice but low-performing person who drags down velocity and quality, you are punishing your high performers.
You're sending them a message.
You're sending them a very clear message. You're telling them, your hard work doesn't matter because I tolerate mediocrity. Or your psychological safety doesn't matter because I tolerate toxic behavior as long as that person ships code.
And your best people will leave.
Your best people will always leave first. They have the most options. So you are degrading the resilience of the entire group to protect the feelings of one individual. And that is not leadership. The source is blunt about this. That is cowardice disguised as kindness.
Oof. Cowardice disguised as kindness. That hits hard. But it's true. The team knows. They always know who isn't pulling their weight.
They know before you do. And they are watching you. They're waiting for you to act. Your inaction is an action, and it's destroying their morale.
Okay, let's take a breath. That was heavy. We've covered the heavy interpersonal stuff. The coaching, the firing, the feedback. I want to pivot now to what you call the architecture, the hard skills.
The scaffolding.
Because you can have all the emotional intelligence in the world, but if nobody knows who is supposed to sign off on the budget or who makes the final call on a design, you're still going to fail.
This is the transition from psychology to architecture. You can't have one without the other.
The source calls this the foundation of clarity, and it talks about this idea of the hidden curriculum. What is that?
The hidden curriculum is the collection of unwritten rules that govern how your team actually works. It's the norms, the culture.
Like what?
Like, how do we make decisions? Is it consensus? Does the most senior person decide? Is it okay to message people on weekends? Do I need to get permission to deploy a small code change? Or can I just do it? Who needs to be in this meeting?
And if it's unwritten?
It's invisible, which means it is absolutely terrifying for new hires. Imagine joining a new game where nobody tells you the rules, but every time you break one, people give you a funny look or get annoyed.
That sounds like my first week at every job I've ever had. It's pure anxiety.
Right. It creates massive anxiety, and anxiety kills performance. So the resilient move, the builder move, is to document the curriculum, make the implicit explicit.
I can hear thousands of listeners groaning right now. Documentation? You mean I have to spend my time writing a wiki that no one will read?
I know, it's not sexy. But think of it this way. It's asynchronous management. If the rules for making a decision are written down, you don't have to be in the room to make sure it happens correctly. The system enforces the rules. You get to scale yourself.
Okay, so let's get specific. Let's look at two concrete tools for this, because I think people struggle with how to document these fuzzy things like roles and responsibilities. The first is a classic, the FEGI matrix.
A classic for a reason, RACI.
Now, I've seen this used in big corporate settings where it's just this like bureaucratic box-ticking exercise that everyone hates. But the source material argues it's actually a powerful political tool.
It is a clarity weapon. When used correctly, it is designed to short-circuit arguments before they start. It stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed.
Okay.
And the entire power of this tool, the whole magic of it, rests on the subtle but critical difference between the R and the A.
Responsible versus accountable.
Yes. In normal, everyday English, those words are basically synonyms. In management, they are critically distinct. Responsible is the doer, the person with their hands on the keyboard, the people doing the work.
And you can have multiple responsible people.
You can have a whole team of them. Accountable, however, is the owner, the single neck on the line, the person who has the final say and who owns the outcome, success or failure.
And the rule is?
You can have many R's, but you can only ever have one A. Because if two people are accountable, nobody is accountable. They can always point at each other when something goes wrong. I thought she was handling that. You need one single point of ownership.
The source gave a great example from Etsy about, of all things, updating font files.
Yes, this is a perfect example of how a seemingly simple thing is actually incredibly complex in an organization. They wanted to update the fonts on the website. Sounds easy. But engineering is worried about performance and load times. Design is worried about aesthetics and brand consistency. Marketing is worried about how it reflects the brand. Product is worried about how it affects conversion.
So you have 20 people in a room arguing about fonts.
Design by committee is the death of all innovation. So they used a RICI matrix. They assigned the responsible role to 2 designers. They were the ones actually doing the design work. But here's the key. They assigned the accountable role to one single design lead.
Just one.
Just one. She owned the final decision.
So what about the grumpy engineers who are worried about the site slowing down?
They were consulted.
Now, does consulted mean I have a veto? Does it mean I have to do what you say?
No, and that is the beauty of it. Consulted means I am obligated to ask for your opinion. I have to genuinely listen to your input and weigh your concerns. But it does not mean I have to obey you. The accountable person, the design lead, still has the final decision-making power.
That's a huge distinction. It makes the engineers feel heard because they were formally consulted in the process, but it stops them from being a blocker.
Exactly. It creates a disagree and commit environment. The design lead can say, I heard your performance concerns, I understand the risk, but I am the accountable one and I am making the call to proceed. It's clear.
And then there is informed, the I.
The informed bucket is for the stakeholders who just need to know what happened after the fact. They get a memo. They get an email. They do not get a seat in the meeting.
I feel like half of corporate inefficiency is people who should be informed thinking they're consulted.
100%. And a RICI matrix agreed upon at the start of a project solves that. If you clarify that up front, hey, Bob, you are in the I bucket on this, it saves so much time and so many painful meetings.
So RCI is great for discrete projects. But what about the messy, ongoing overlap of roles, like between leaders? The source suggests a different tool for that, a Venn diagram exercise.
Yes. This is for the more fuzzy, long-term stuff. This addresses what I call the mom and dad problem.
What?
You know, when you have an engineering manager and a product manager, and the team doesn't know who to ask for what, they go to the product manager and ask, can I take a vacation day? And she says, I don't know, ask your engineering manager. Then they go to the engineering manager and ask, should we build this feature? And he says, I don't know, ask the product manager.
And the team gets bounced back and forth.
And sometimes the managers don't even know. They're accidentally stepping on each other's toes, or big things are getting dropped in the gap between them.
So the exercise is simple. You get the leaders in a room with a whiteboard. You draw 2 or 3 overlapping circles, one for the product manager, one for the engineering manager, maybe one for the tech lead. And you start placing sticky notes with responsibilities on them.
Yes. The source talks about a specific reorg at Meetup where they did this to great effect. They were struggling with this exact confusion.
They broke it down into the who, the how, and the what.
Right. It's a great little framework.
The who is the people stuff.
Exactly. Hiring, firing, promotions, career development, one-on-ones, team health. All of that went squarely in the engineering manager circle. They own the people.
The how is the technical stuff.
The architecture, the code quality, the technical debt, the choice of frameworks, that went into the tech lead circle. They own the implementation.
And the what is the product itself.
What are we building? Why are we building it? What problem are we solving for the customer? That's the product manager circle. They own the problem space.
It sounds so clean and simple when you lay it out like that, but there must be overlaps.
There are always overlaps. That's the point of using a Venn diagram. For example, scoping a project for the next quarter. That involves what features do we need and how is it technically possible in that time frame. So that sticky note goes right in the intersection between product and engineering.
And the big insight from the source here is that the overlap isn't a failure of the process, it's a feature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The overlap is where the critical collaboration happens, but you have to name it. You have to explicitly say, we own this responsibility together. If you don't name it, it becomes a no man's land, or worse, a turf war.
It changes the mindset from why are you doing my job to this is our shared job.
One little semantic shift, one little diagram on a whiteboard can change the entire dynamic of a leadership team.
Okay, so this is great. We have clarity on who does what, but we are missing the biggest piece of the puzzle, the most important question, the why.
The North Star, the
Yeah.
purpose.
Exactly. Without that, all this efficiency is just, efficiently running in circles. And the source introduces the VMSO framework for this. Vision, mission, strategy, objectives.
It comes from Jeff Weiner at LinkedIn, and it is the perfect antidote to what I call the hamster wheel feeling.
We've all felt that.
You know that feeling where the team is working incredibly hard, they're shipping code every day, they're closing tickets, but morale is low because nobody really knows where the bus is going.
We're digging a ditch very, very efficiently, but why are we digging this ditch?
VMSO answers the why, but it has to be done right. So many teams have a terrible generic mission statement.
Like we build high-quality, scalable software solutions.
That's not a mission. That's a job description from a boilerplate posting. A mission needs to be inspirational, but also grounding. It has to explain your team's unique purpose.
There was a fantastic case study in the source about an infrastructure team at Etsy. Now, this is a team that literally just maintains the servers and the internal developer tools. It is very, very hard to make that sound sexy.
It is. By their own admission, they were viewed as the help desk or the plumbers. Other teams only came to them when something was broken. Fix my ticket. As a result, they had no leverage, no influence. They couldn't get more headcount because the business didn't understand their value.
So they did the VMSO work. They locked themselves in a room.
They debated for hours just on the vision and mission. And they had a breakthrough. They shifted their identity. They went from we maintain the build tools to we empower product teams to craft inclusive and delightful marketplaces.
Now, cynically, that sounds a little bit like corporate fluff. Did it actually change anything?
It changed everything because suddenly they could link every single thing they did back to the company's bottom line. They could build a narrative. They could go to leadership and say, if you give us one more engineer, we can invest in our deployment pipeline and reduce deployment time by 5 minutes. That saves every other engineer at the company an hour a week. Over a year, that is worth $2 million in saved engineering time that can be spent building features.
Wow. Okay, so the mission statement became a calculator.
It became a shield and a sword. It allowed them to defend their roadmap. When a random stakeholder from another department came to them and said, hey, can you build this custom one-off tool just for my team? They could point to their strategy and say, does this empower all the product teams to build the marketplace? No. Then it's not aligned with our strategy, and we aren't doing it.
That is the definition of resilience.
Yeah.
The ability to say no without feeling guilty or being seen as unhelpful.
No is the most important word in management, but you can only say it with confidence if you have a clear strategy to back it up. Otherwise, you're just being difficult.
So they built this whole charter, vision, mission, strategy, objectives, roadmap, all of it.
And put it on a wiki so anyone could see it. It became their constitution.
We've covered the big vision. That I want to end on something incredibly small, almost mundane. The source calls it documenting the mundane.
The boring stuff that actually runs the team.
The author talks about doing an audit of their own calendar and their team's tools. Why would you do that?
This goes back to the bus factor, or as you called it, the abducted by aliens scenario. If you, the manager, are the only person who knows that the team demo happens on Fridays at 10, or that we use a specific Slack channel for deployment announcements, you are a single point of failure.
And it creates that new hire friction we talked about earlier. The new person has to constantly interrupt you to ask for basic information.
It's humiliating for them. Nobody wants to be the person asking, where's the bathroom? 5 times a day. They want to feel competent and self-sufficient. So the author literally scanned their calendar and their Slack channels and listed every single team ritual.
Like what?
Stand-ups, demos, retrospectives, planning meetings, the key email lists, the important Slack channels and what they're for, how we do peer support, all of it, and put it on a single wiki page.
It's a user manual for how to work on this team.
Exactly. It's so simple, but it's a game changer for onboarding. And it means that if you go on vacation for 2 weeks, the team doesn't grind to a halt. They know the rhythm. The system keeps running.
And that brings us full circle, doesn't it?
It does. Right back to the beginning.
Resilient management isn't about you, the manager, being a superhero. It's not about you being strong enough to catch every falling plate.
No. It's about building a shelf so the plates don't fall in the first place.
It's the synthesis of all these things we talked about.
Yeah.
You need the emotional intelligence to wear the four hats to coach when needed and mentor when needed. You need the courage to use the feedback equation to clear the air.
But that's not enough.
Right. You also need the administrative discipline to sit down and do the boring work, to write the RSCI matrix, to draw the Venn diagram, to draft the VMSO charter with your team.
You have to be an architect, a builder.
So here is the challenge we want to leave you with today, and it's a bit of a provocative thought experiment from the source material.
I love this question. It's so revealing.
Imagine you disappear tomorrow. You win the lottery, or you get abducted by aliens. You are gone for a month. No email, no Slack, no contact.
Does your team know who decides what? Do they know what the top priorities are? Do they know how to onboard the new hire who's starting next week? Or would they be completely paralyzed until you return?
If the honest answer is paralyzed, then you are still a fixer. And that's okay. Recognition is the first step. But it means you have some building to do.
It means it's time to start documenting that hidden curriculum.
Don't try to do it all at once. You don't need a VMSO and a RACI and a Team Wiki by Friday. That's a recipe for burnout. Just pick one thing.
One small thing.
Maybe tomorrow, in your next 1.1, try the feedback equation. Next time someone complains to you about a coworker, just take a breath, resist the urge to fix it, and ask them, what was the impact?
Just start there and see where the conversation goes. You might be surprised.
Thank you for diving deep with us. This is the work that makes all the other work possible. Go build something resilient. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.